In this video, we will get a better understanding of how to use variables in a Python program. I have started up online GDB as my programming environment, and you will see that I have selected Python as my programming language. So let's write down the task that we now need to achieve. So I will make use of a comment. This is just for the programmer's use. We are going to write a program to do the following. So the first step, still as a comment, we want to create a variable called num1 and give it the value of 50. Then step 2, we'll create another variable called num2, and we'll set it to have the value of 30. Then in step 3, we will find the sum of the values stored in num1 and num2 and store the result in the variable called ans. And once we've got the answer, the final step is to then display the answer to the user. So let's output the answer to the user. Remember, you are the programmer and somebody is going to be using the program that you have written. So let's start with our commands. At the first step, we are required to create a variable called num1 and to give it the value of 50. So there we are. I've got the variable num1 and we give it the value of 50. So that's the code that you would use in Python, where you've got your variable. You have your variable called num1. That is on the left-hand side. You've got the value on the right-hand side, and we use the equal to sign to take the value on the right-hand side and to store it in the variable on the left-hand side. So similarly, step 2 wants us to create another variable called num2, and there we need to store the value 30. So we've created 2 variables and we've stored the values in the variable. You never ever have the statement the other way around. That is incorrect. So in other words, you won't say 50, you will not say 50 equals num1. That is not right. It's always the variable that's receiving the answer that should be on the left-hand side. Then step 3, we need to find the sum of the values stored in num1 and num2 and store the result in ans. Store the result in ans. Remember, the result must be on the left-hand side. So ans equals, that's where my result is going to be stored. We're getting the values from num1 and num2. So we're going to say num1 plus num2. Now, here you could have the temptation, instead of saying num1 and num2, you could put the physical values 50 and 30. And you still will get the correct answer, which we know is 80. It will still work if you had to put the physical values. However, at this basic level, I need you to understand that we should not work with the physical values. I want to work with the variables. And the reason I want to work with the variables, right? Let's change this to num1 and num2. The reason I want to work with the variables, if there's a change that is made, for example, num1 changes to 70, then automatically that change is taking place in the variable at line 9. And similarly, if we had to change num2, then whatever change we make will automatically be made when the answer is being calculated. So let's not use physical values, let's make use of the variables. So I've got num1 set to 7, well, we set 50, num2 set to 30, and then step 3, we're finding the sum of num1 and num2, and we're storing it in ounce, not the other way around. Please take note. So now that I have that, the final step, it's useless if I leave the answer as it is. In other words, the computer has done the calculation, but the user is not going to see what answer has been calculated. So we have to have an output statement, and we use the print statement to output, and we can print ans, which is the value that's stored in this variable here. Again, we don't want to print 80. We know the answer is 80, right? But we don't want to print 80. We want to print ans. And the same reason applies that if I want to change any of these values, then automatically ans will change and the new value will be printed. So let's give this a quick run. So when I give it a run, you will see that the output automatically is 80. At this stage, it will be nice for you to have user-friendly output. So the user is simply seeing 80. So let's put a message. So it'll be nice to say the sum of the numbers is, okay, so that's my message. And then I'm going to put a comma, and then I have my variable ans. Notice I don't put quotes around ans because ans is a variable. And this is my message. The message and the variable is separated with a comma. And now if I give this a run, you will see it says the sum of the numbers is, and it prints 80. Maybe as a task, you could attempt to modify the print statement so that it is even more descriptive. And then it says the sum of the numbers 50 and 30 is, and then print the answer 80. So by that, remember again, I don't want you to hard code the sum of the numbers. I don't want you to say 50 and 30 like that, because if I then go and make changes here, this is still going to print 50 and 30 in my output. So when I say modify this, here I want you to incorporate your variables num1 and num2. And that's going to require a little bit of effort in terms of knowing where your messages should end and where the variables should come in. So you're going to have multiple messages and multiple variables all in one print statement. That is something that you can give a try, and I hope that you will succeed in that. But this is just an example to demonstrate how you would make use of variables as you are working in a Python program. I hope this helps you. Thank you and goodbye.